Hello and welcome to LUXE Minds. My name is Irini and today we're going to be talking about how to negotiate for a salary raise. I know for a lot of companies right now, it's the time for budget and settling your compensation for 2021. So it's the perfect time to sit down and have this conversation with your manager on why you deserve that salary raise. And I actually just had my conversation with my manager last week, so I'm fresh off of this conversation and really want to share with you guys the tools and resources I use to prepare for this conversation. So let's get started. Step 1, ask around. It's really important that you understand what your peers are making for the same position and level of responsibilities that you have. Ask your female friends, your male friends, and understand where it is that they lie in the world of compensation. Once you have a better view of this range, you can understand what your current compensation is and where your value really is and what you should be getting compensated in that range. So that's what I decided to do back in January. I talked to my female colleagues and my male colleagues, asking to have an open conversation around their salary. Now, asking people how much they make is taboo and really not appropriate. But I feel like this has been something that companies have started, and it comes down from HR and comes down and says, these are the rules. Don't talk about your compensation. Don't ask people how much they make, because, the only person that benefits by you saying hush hush on this topic is these companies, because they can get away with underpaying their employees. Now, of course, there's sites like LinkedIn and Glassdoor that you can also leverage to do research on your position and role and how much it makes in the industry overall. But the best numbers are going to come from the people around you. So don't be afraid to ask. And if someone asks you, don't be afraid to share, because this is where the best learnings come out of. And if during this process you find out that someone makes more money than you and you have the same roles and responsibilities, well, there's no need to be upset or angry with them. It's really about channeling that energy internally and focusing in on your conversation with your manager to ask for your value. Step 2, it's all about timing. You need to understand when compensation conversations happen. Do they happen in the spring, in the fall, in the winter? If January comes and you get your new compensation and you're not happy with it, that's not when you negotiate, right? That's not the time for you to ask for that salary to be increased. By then, it's already set in stone and there's nothing that your manager or HR can do. You need to figure out when that conversation happens, whether it's 3 months, 4 months, 5 months before. You need to talk to your peers and HR and figure out when compensation conversations happen. Step 3, schedule your meeting with your manager. The sooner you put this on the books, the more likely it is that it's going to happen. If you procrastinate and keep pushing it off and off, then you're going to miss the deadline and you're not going to get that salary increase. So put it on the books, and then once it's on the books, you can move on and get ready for it. Now, to schedule a meeting with your manager, I always say that if you have a regular one-on-one meeting with them, then utilize that meeting for this conversation. Send them a quick email or a message ping and let them know, hey, for our one-on-one, I'd like to use a few minutes of it to discuss compensation. It shouldn't take long, but I'd really like to address this topic with you. Now, if you don't have a one-on-one meeting with your manager, easy enough, send them an email or a chat just requesting a meeting with them, about 30 minutes just to talk about your compensation, and you can send a few options with them as well. And I'll include a link below to a whole site that has a bunch of email templates for you to structure these conversations with your manager that I've utilized and are very simple to understand and put to use. Your meeting is scheduled, you've done your research, you've talked to your friends, you know when these conversations are happening, so it's really time to sit down and understand how much money you want to ask for. Now, there's several ways you can go into this conversation with. You can go in with a range of, from this number to this number is what I'm looking for. Now, if you go in with a range, it's important to remember that the lower end of your range, that lowest number, that should be the target salary you're looking for. You never want to go lower than what you actually want, because you're probably going to end up on that range on the lower end anyways. So make sure your lowest number that you've offered up is what you want. And then the highest number is like, my dream goal of what I really, really deserve, but I know I'm not going to get, but I'm still going to ask for it anyways. So if you go in with a range, that's what you typically should go with. Now, if you go in with a straight number, that's great. As always, aim a lot higher than what you're actually looking for, because your chances that you actually get that number are slim. They can happen, but it's always good to prepare for the worst. So go in with a higher number. Now, your third option is you can always go in there with a percentage, right? You can ask for, I'm looking for a 10%, 20%, 30%, whatever number based on your research increase in the salary hike. So prepare your numbers, have those ready. You don't want to go in there and just say, I want a raise, but don't provide numbers, because When you're disappointed, when you find out what that number is, it's technically your fault because you also didn't vocalize what number you were looking for. So very important to prepare your numbers based on your research, of course. So now the foundation has been set, and that brings me to my next step. We have to sit down and really list out your accomplishments. Why do you deserve this? What value do you bring? What grounds do you have to ask for a raise? Very simple. So I've shared below in the description a link to this site that I'm showing you guys right now. So this site is very helpful and has a lot of templates that are easy to use and understand when it comes to asking for a raise from your boss. So this email template helps you organize your thoughts in preparation for your meeting with your manager. And you're gonna send them this email after your meeting. Once your meeting is completed, this is a great way to recap the conversation that you had with them and send this up as a follow-up email. So the way that this email is organized, of course, you have your beginning, your greetings, and your introduction, which lays the foundation for what you're asking for and the actual numbers or range or salary percentage increase. So that's what this first intro does. Then the next section that we'll get into is those accomplishments, right? This is the time to brag about yourself, highlight the things you've done, the money you've saved, the clients you've brought in, the leadership roles you've taken, the outside teamwork that you do if you're part of a group, if you mentor someone. List it all out here because this is your time to shine and really show what you've brought to this company. It's also great, what you can do here is list out your responsibilities at the beginning of the year and your responsibilities now to show that you've taken on more and more work. In doing so, you deserve a higher compensation. So that's how I would really structure this part of your email. And then after that, provide some proof, those receipts, that feedback from your peers, your colleagues, your clients. What are people saying about your work? Really drive in your point with this great quotes and feedback from the people around you that know you best. And then of course you end it all off in your conclusion to drive your point home. Now, again, this email is going to be sent after you meet with your manager in person, but writing it first is a great way to get your thoughts down on paper and help you prepare for that meeting. Now, once your email is complete and your thoughts are written down, the next thing you want to do is practice, right? Get in front of a mirror, get in front of a friend, practice your pitch, your points, really hone in on why you deserve this raise. Now, my next tip, what you don't want to do during your meeting is talk about other people on your team. Don't compare yourself to other people. Don't bring up other people's names. This meeting is about you and your value and why you deserve this raise and what you've done to this team. So focus in on only your accomplishments and your value to the team. All right, so the big day is here. You have your one-on-one meeting with your manager. I would suggest that you take a few moments, you power pose, you are confident, you know exactly why you deserve this raise, you've prepared, you've practiced, know your worth, know your value, and just go in there and kill it, right? Make sure you speak up for yourself because no one else is gonna speak up for yourself. If you're a woman watching this, just know that in 2018, women made $500 billion less than men because they refused to speak up for themselves. They didn't ask for raises. They weren't up on the table doing what a man was doing. So when you go into that meeting, think like a man, act like a man, and demand your pay. So you had your meeting with your manager, and now it's time for you to follow up, send out that email so that everything is recorded. And this is a great way for your manager then to send that to HR or their manager and just have it in their records to understand that you had this conversation and these were the takeaways. Now, if your manager says, it's not in our budget, there's no room, we really can't, give it to you now, then ask them, what else can I continue to do to ensure that next time we have this conversation, I'll get this compensation, right? Have an open conversation with them and figuring out ways to ensure that this compensation is on the roadmap for you. Now, if it seems like your manager really doesn't see your value and they come back at you and say, you are being compensated accordingly to what you're bringing to the table, but you obviously don't think that you are and you're fighting for a lot more, then it comes to a turning point where you really have to reflect and understand, is my manager supportive of my career? Are they going to push for me? Are they going to fight for me? Do they see the value that I bring to this team? Or is it time for me to walk away? And it's a hard conversation to have, but at some point you're going to need to reflect on this point because your manager will make or break your career. Now, of course, with everything happening in the world right now, with so many people unemployed and so many people struggling to find jobs, maybe it's not the right time for you to be asking for a raise or pushing for that conversation right now. Really take a time to reflect on what industry you're in, What is your company, what are their earnings? What is it looking like? Are they making money right now? Are they doing well, or are they struggling financially? If you are in an industry that is thriving right now and you can push for this conversation, then I say push for it, right? Because you need to vocalize and fight for yourself and make sure you're being compensated accordingly in today's climate. And have this conversation with them. And make sure that once you have it, you send out the email, and then you circle back again, right, a few weeks later and just say, hey, want to check in, see if you had a chance to talk to HR, or what are your thoughts? Now, if you are in a industry or a company that right now is struggling financially and just trying to stay up on its feet given the current climate, then I don't think that pushing for a conversation on a increase in your salary is going to be the best move on your part. Have a conversation with your manager on other ways to be compensated for that salary gap that you're currently facing because of the value you bring to the table. There's a lot of other ways to be compensated. Either way, I do advise you to have this conversation with your manager and just start practicing, right? And you have to stand up for yourself, and over time it'll get easier and easier. So start today. I hope that you learned something in this video. Please share it with your other friends. Everyone needs to have this conversation. You can use this video as a way to start the conversation with your friends and colleagues. Share it around and get some input and get this started for you, because you deserve it. So go get it, okay? And join the Luxe Minds community. Hit that subscribe and like button, and I will see you next week. Bye.